So, uh, I was going through some items today. Um, and the items, the clothing items, there's a bunch of Trump clothing in there, Trump t-shirts, stuff like that. That let me know that this town right here is more conservative than it is democratic, because people were actually wearing Trump clothing here during the election. There was no riots. There was no protests. Peaceful protests when people were walking around with picket signs before I got here and trying to squeeze in, get that democratic narrative in there. Some kind of way they got to try to get it in there. But most of the people out here, I can tell, voted for Trump. Trump won the vote. Behind me, I don't know if you can see that, but in that office right there, picture Donald Trump. Okay. So I appreciate that. But I was watching a bunch of videos this week, and found some new videos on Allentown. Now I keep track of what's going on in Altoona, because I love Altoona. I keep track of what's going on in Altoona. I keep track of what's going on in Wilkes-Barre. I love Wilkes-Barre. There's parts of Philadelphia that blow my mind, but the majority of it, no. No. And I don't like when communities become so urban that that's all that's there, is the urban attitude, the urban spirit, and people of a certain demographic, and it's just always about them. And if you see any white people walking through, then they're just minorities compared to the brown skinned people that are there. I don't like that. I don't like that. I really don't. I totally detest that. I don't want America to become more brown. I really don't. Whether it's African Americans, whether it's Spanish or Indian, Arab, even Asian. I want America to be the same America it was back in 1966 when I was born. I wanted to be predominantly white. Okay? I wanted to stay that way. Okay? Especially Pennsylvania. I want Pennsylvania to stay predominantly white in every single city of Pennsylvania. I'm sorry, but that's just the way I feel. And there's a good reason for that, because, if you ain't living there, you don't really care what happens there. If you're not investing your money there, you don't care what's happening there. Okay? If you don't own businesses there, if you sold your house and moved out of your house there and moved to another part of town, you don't care about that town no more. And I don't want to be in a place where white people don't value the town. Now, they value Lancaster. They value Altoona. And Wilkes-Barre, even though is becoming more and more Spanish every year, the white people are still the dominant number. They are still the dominant number. And it has to be the dominant number, and not just in the upper class neighborhoods. It has to be the dominant number everywhere, even in subsidized housing. Now, Allentown, I watched this video of Allentown just now, and they came in there from a different angle. I went on vacation in Allentown back in 22. They came from a different angle to Allentown, and they showed me a side of Allentown that, to me, that's just too many row houses. And then they went up another street and crossed the bridge and went into another district. Row house after row house, all clumped together. I don't like that. And Altoona has part of that, but it's only one street. It's called 6th Avenue. Okay, once you get off 6th Avenue, there's no more row houses. And you can go up the hill. You can bend the corner at the corner on 6th Avenue and go up the hill, and you'll see all kinds of homes. You'll see everything from rich homes to you know, homes that look like the government, to homes that, you know, are middle class, whatever, right next to each other. And I love that. I appreciate that about Altoona. That's what goes on in Altoona. In Altoona, you know, the streets are not all tight together like they are in, like, Allentown. Whereas, you know, the streets are a little bit further apart, so when you're driving, the drive-through is a lot easier, and people are more cautious. You know, people even more than here in Washington, like in Altoona. People are very cautious about the way they drive. You have less accidents and less crazy drivers and less people getting tickets and less drunk drivers in Altoona than you do in Allentown. And here in Washington. Here in Washington, I love this town. Very conservative, but you know, you got a lot of people out here that they drink and drive. They get pulled over every day, get arrested for drinking and driving. They drive like maniacs out here. They fly past the college like there's no tomorrow, and they only have like a mile. Like this, you know, and the streets are not that wide. And the streets, you know, you only got 2 lanes on a one-way street. There's going to be a light at the end of, you know, like, what are they thinking? But I appreciate that the people, one thing I do appreciate is that the white people that live uptown, this is still their city. They come down here. They show off their fancy cars and all like that, and I don't have a problem with that. They still come down here on their fancy, old-fashioned 1970s cars and 60s cars, and they bring their fancy, old-fashioned motorcycles down here and scooters and you know, electric tricycles and all kinds of stuff. Some of these people enjoy this small town, you know. Their family lived here and left them the house, and they're happy to be here. Okay? So that's what I appreciate about this town. It's very quiet around here, but it's a good town to, you know, again, and as I say in every video, if you come to Pittsburgh, stop in Washington, get your hotel in Washington, hang out in Washington to avoid all that crazy traffic and all like that. Do your thing in Pittsburgh, and then, you know, when you come back here to Washington, you're home, because there ain't no crazy traffic. There ain't no crazy streets where you can't figure out what's going on. There's not a, it's easy peasy out here. Easy place to live. Easy place to stay. You know, I really think Lancaster is where I want to retire. Looking at videos on all these now, like, again, I love Altoona, I love Wilkes-Barre, I love Allentown. But Allentown got some hoodie problems. Allentown got some hoodie problems. And Allentown is kind of like a smaller version of Pittsburgh. It's like small Pittsburgh, you know. And so if you're trying to get away from the crime and craziness of Pittsburgh, yeah, Allentown's a good city. But if you are trying to be more conservative, if you're trying to be more, you're trying to get more of a middle class feel without being rich to be middle class. You know what I'm saying? Allentown's not it. Allentown, as a black man, you're going to end up moving down there and living in subsidized housing right next to some other black folks who don't know how to turn the music down. They're going to be blasting their music, and the minute you say something to them, they're going to be ready to fight. You know what I mean? It's that kind of a neighborhood. Just like Philly, which is probably another 30 minutes to an hour down the road. Allentown is like little Pittsburgh and little Philly, in one, because all them row houses are just like Philly, and some of the crime is like Philly, not as bad as Philly, but it's people move up there from Philly, and a lot of people moving up there from Philly are bad people. They're very, very, very urban and hoodish. Very, very urban, and they're very street, I don't want to be around that. Now, Lancaster is a town that is more geared to a totally different demographic of white people. And the black folks out there, from what I've seen from the videos, keep to themselves. They're not out on, you know what I'm saying? You're going to see more white people walking around town than you are going to see black folks. Okay? And in a way, I don't mind that. I think that, not that black people don't know how to enjoy the town without misbehaving. It's just that when you see a town where white people are outside a lot and walking around and enjoying their city, that tells you that the town has not been deserted, is what I'm saying. It tells you that the town has not been deserted, that it's a good town, and that the people there, they salute, they appreciate their town. They're privileged to be there, and they treat it that way, in that manner. So, that's what I'm thinking about. So I watch these videos on Altoona, Wilkes-Barre. I love Wilkes-Barre. Wilkes-Barre is like right in between, like Allentown and Altoona. There's a part of it that's urban, but the majority of it, and it's the mixed community. That's one thing I love about Wilkes-Barre. I don't know if the Spanish guys out there are like appreciating the mixed community, but when I was out there during my Job Corps days, I went to church out there and that. We were the mixed community, and we had a great time. White, black, and other races all together. I don't know today, since the pandemic, all these Spanish colonies moving in there, they got their flags sticking out of the window like, this ain't America. They're going to turn this into, Pennsylvania part of Mexico or something. I don't know what that means. And I asked these guys about like what that means. They get mad. Well, what's it mean? I want to know, what's it mean? It's not like you're going to turn this into Little Mexico, and why are you all living all on the same street? Why are we turning certain districts of the neighborhood? And when it comes to that, I blame white people for that. That's just something that's dumb that white people do. They allow people to have their own districts. They allow people to segregate. And I don't like that. You come to this country, the first thing you should know you're going to do, and you're going to do it till you die here, you are going to mix in with the American population. You're going to mix in with the whites and the blacks and every other race of that city. If you don't like it, go home. There's no coming over here and getting all your Spanish buddies together and living in one district. And there's so many of you in that district, you can put your flags outside the window and claim that this is part of Mexico. I kind of feel like over my dead body, you know, and I wish Trump would put a stop to that. I really do. I don't like that. I don't like that. I think if you come to this country, the best way to show any immigrant how to get along is make them get along. Don't let them segregate and make everything about them. Every Spanish store is their race. But in closing, again, I viewed Lancaster, Wilkes-Barre, Altoona, and Allentown, also King of Prussia and Conshohocken, and these are all my favorite towns in Pennsylvania that I have yet to visit, and even certain parts of Philly, like even Upper Derby is another one of my favorites that I've yet to visit. Take a vacation there and scope the place out. But the only place where I plan on living will be Lancaster. Every other place will be my stomping ground for me to visit and, you know, go down there to see my people, or go down there to see the Spanish people, or go down there to see more white people, or whatever. But the place where I'm going to make my home is going to be Lancaster. So God bless you. Thank you for your time. I will talk to you later with more. In Jesus' name, God bless.